Hey there, this is Veena from Pare, the channel that's about baking and much more. A warm welcome to my channel. Hi, I'm back again with yet another quick and easy Diwali sweet. A super tasty, melt in the mouth Besan Burfi. Yes, I already have a recipe for this on my channel. For a healthy Besan Burfi, where part of the ghee is replaced with oil. Well, this recipe is even healthier. In this recipe, we are going to replace even the sugar, but with jaggery. So today's recipe is a healthy Besan Burfi with jaggery recipe. And yet again, we are going to replace part of the ghee with oil. For those of you who have not seen my earlier healthy Besan Burfi recipe, the link is up here and in the description box below. So if you're ready to see how I make healthy Besan Burfi with jaggery, let's get started right away at Pare. An early reminder to watch the video till the end, for I have a number of useful tips to help you get the burfi right, okay? For today's recipe, you won't need any costly ingredients and you won't have the hassle of preparing any sugar or jaggery syrup and making certain that you get the consistency right either. All you need to do is some careful and patient stirring, but that will come afterwards. The first thing you need to do is prepare the pan in which you'll set the burfi. I'm using this tray. I've already greased it well with ghee. Instead of ghee, you could also use refined oil. Now let's put this aside and turn to our main ingredient, besan. As many of you may be aware, besan tends to form lumps, which is why we have to always sift it before using it. I'll sift 2 cups or 200 grams of besan into this non-stick pan. Instead of a pan like this, you could use a thick-walled karai or wok. We'll start by dry roasting the besan on medium heat for around 4 to 5 minutes with constant stirring to avoid burning it. When you dry roast the besan like this before roasting it in ghee, the grains of the besan flour become a little crisp and lend a granular texture to the burfi. Now that the besan has been uniformly roasted, let's reduce the heat to the lowest setting and gradually add in 3/4 of a cup plus 2 tablespoons, that's 190 grams of pure ghee. And also a 1/4 cup or 55 grams of any cooking oil that doesn't have a strong smell. Let's mix the besan well with the ghee and oil. Increase the heat to medium again and start roasting the besan, once again with constant stirring. Oh, it looks like I've run into a small problem. During the time it took me to add in the ghee and oil, my besan got slightly burnt at one small spot. Luckily, I caught on to what was happening in time, and so I have just a few specks of brown in the mixture. To avoid something like this happening when you make this burfi, make sure that when you have to add the ghee and oil, you have someone to help you with the pouring, so that you can focus on stirring the besan non-stop. Now, like I mentioned, just as in my other besan burfi recipe, today too, we have replaced a small part of the ghee with oil. By reducing the amount of ghee in the recipe, we are also reducing the quantity of unhealthy saturated fats. Foods like ghee, butter, palm oil, cheese, and red meat have a large content of saturated fats. Medical professionals tell us it's good to reduce such fats in our diet because if we include more saturated fats in our food, this could lead to heart problems and other diseases. We'll roast the besan on medium heat for the first 6 minutes or so, all the while carefully stirring the mix. Our 6 minutes are up, so we'll now reduce the heat to medium-low and continue roasting the besan for another 6 to 7 minutes till it becomes golden brown, not dark brown, and gives off a lovely aroma. But be careful, burning the besan could ruin the taste of the barfi. On the other hand, the better you roast the besan with proper stirring, the tastier your barfi will turn out. Another thing, don't over roast the besan because then your barfi will be crumbly. Can you see how the color of our besan has now changed? It's taken on a rich golden brown color and the kitchen here is filled with the appetizing aroma of roasted besan. So I'll now turn off the heat but continue with the stirring for a minute or two longer because the pan is extremely hot and pausing even for a few seconds could result in the besan getting badly burnt. Now that the stirring has reduced the temperature of the roasted besan a little, we'll add in a quarter cup of milk powder. This will enhance the taste of our barfi. Let's stir the mix for another minute and then add in 1 cup plus 2 tablespoons or 230 grams of grated jaggery. Well, now it's a case of once bitten, twice shy for me. And so I've asked my son to help out with adding in the jaggery. Remember that when you measure the jaggery, you have to pack it into the measuring cup and tablespoon with some amount of pressure. That's how you have to measure some ingredients like grated jaggery. Actually, because measuring some ingredients could be tricky, I always try to give you the weight of the ingredients as well. In fact, for this recipe, where the proportion of the ingredients is most important, I would suggest that you try your best to go by the weight of the main ingredients to ensure your barfi sets properly. In this recipe, you might not have the hassle of preparing a sugar or jaggery syrup, but you do have to ensure that you have all the main ingredients in the right proportion. Hope I've made this point clear. Now that the jaggery has fully melted just with the heat of the pan and the roasted mix, we'll quickly stir in a quarter cup of chopped cashew nuts and 1 teaspoon of ground cardamom. You could also use chopped almonds instead of cashew nuts. From now onwards, we have to act very fast because the barfi will set in minutes. We'll transfer the hot mix to our prepared pan. Press it down and smoothen the top with a spatula. And then further smoothen the top with the greased bottom of a vati or small bowl. Like this. I'll now add a sprinkling of chopped cashew nuts and pistachios and press these down lightly into the barfi slab. Now when making this barfi, you have to mark it with cuts of squares or rectangles while it is still hot. If you wait till it sets, you won't be able to make clean cuts. Okay, that done, we'll let the barfi cool down for around 30 minutes and then separate the cut pieces. After 30 minutes, the barfi is firm, but still barely lukewarm. Let's check a piece. It has been cut cleanly and the sides are smooth. But let me show you the texture of the barfi. It's firm on the outside but still slightly soft inside. It will firm up some more later on after cooling completely. But first, let's taste the barfi. Wow! Our Besan Burfi with jaggery has an awesome taste, and you can feel the distinct, rich flavors of the pure ghee and milk powder that we have added. Now let me tell you about a slightly different way of making today's burfi. Instead of starting with dry roasting the besan, you could start by directly adding the ghee and oil to the sifted besan in the karai or non-stick pan before turning on the heat. Those of you who have seen my earlier video, my healthy Besan Burfi video, might remember that I had started that recipe in this way. After that, mix the besan with the ghee and oil with the flame still off. And then first roast the besan on medium heat and then on medium-low heat, like we did in today's recipe. For the rest of the recipe, you will have to follow the same procedure as today. No change there. This method of starting the recipe by first mixing the besan with the oil and ghee at room temperature does two things. It not only precludes or does away with the need to have someone else help you out with stirring in the ghee and oil into the hot besan, but interestingly also makes a subtle difference to the texture of the barfi. Take a look at the small batch of the Besan and Jaggery Barfi that I have made by using this other method of not dry roasting the besan first. Now let's check the texture of the barfi made this way. Again, cleanly cut sides. Notice that after 30 minutes of setting time, this barfi is somewhat softer and is smoother inside instead of being granular. If you don't care much for the granular texture, you could try out this method as well. As for the taste, both versions of the barfi are utterly delicious. Honestly, you won't be able to stop at eating just one piece. The barfi is that tasty. You've just seen how today's tasty Besan Burfi with jaggery can be put together with just a handful of ingredients and in minutes. Excellent reasons for giving this recipe a shot, right? So do make it this Diwali and share it with your family and friends and make the festive season even more enjoyable. A final reminder to please support my channel and become a subscriber right away. See you in my next video. Until we meet again, happy cooking!